So after I realised that all the crude oil's a load of nonsense, and the whole energy industry and all the stories about where our products come from is all fake, and all this big stupid story about oil when it actually comes from plants, I thought, well, what about some of these other products? Like, what about these special products like gold? What about gold mining? Because gold mining sounds a bit slightly far-fetched as well, really. I haven't been anywhere. I haven't been to a gold mine. I've just seen them on telly, heard about them in films and books and in culture and so on. But, do they really exist? I don't know. Certainly pictures of them exist, but if you take any of these mines that are being shown, right, and you actually start investigating the images, so if you search for photographs of the mines, pick any of them really, you'll see that they're not really quite consistent with each other, and that there's not many of them, and that if you start putting them side by side for one particular mine, you can start seeing some issues where they're not really consistent with each other in a lot of ways. And then you can take a look on the, in quote, satellite imagery on Google Earth or Google Maps, and take a look at the mines on there, and some of them haven't really been modelled or can't really be found. So there's like you might have a mine with 3 or 4 photos, in quotes, which look a bit like they could be paintings or just not photos. And then you look at it on the aerial photography, and it's either not there or just looks really ropey. And I'm just starting to think that gold doesn't come out of these mines, basically, and that the whole thing is just another load of old bollocks. So I just want to show you that if you go and actually look so if you go on Google Maps and you look up one of these gold mines, like for example, Boddington Gold Mine, right? So you look it up, and then you go on the, satellite imagery, and you look at it. You can see that this whole gold mine thing is like a weird layer they've added. They've just added a layer onto the map. So if you look at the edge of this weird blue thing, right? Look at this, just sort of chops up the road, chops up this other road. It doesn't make any sense. This has just been added on, right? So they've just tried to sort of blend in this. They've just done a kind of crappy, half-assed job of blending in this layer that they've created. And in this layer, which is meant to be this gold mine, you can see all sorts of problems. Like, you can see loads of different buildings and objects throw shadows in different directions on this layer, right? So if you look around, like they've got vehicles and buildings and features, and they throw shadows in directions that are not consistent with each other, right? And this whole layer, if you look at it, just doesn't look. I mean, I don't know what you think about it, but to me, this doesn't look realistic. Just look where it is. So what it is if you zoom out a bit, you'll see it's just in the middle of this forest. So it's in this forest location, and if you just look at it here, it's just very incongruous. Like, what is this meant to be? Why is this land so incredibly, amazingly different and kind of cartoony looking compared to the stuff around it? And what is this meant to be is this meant to be a water reservoir or something? Because the colouring looks really, look at this. What is that? It's just sort of some spray painted kind of surface. And just a lot of this stuff doesn't really make very much sense, like what it's meant to be, and why this has such a kind of cartoony, hand-drawn look. It just, this is just looks like a composite. This is supposedly some satellite imagery. Well, why would they create this kind of weird artistic composite layer and stick it on top of just the gold mine and nothing else? You see, there are these weird, like, when you look in the details of the thing, it just doesn't look realistic, is what I'm saying. just doesn't look realistic. And I just think it's very far-fetched, the whole story of these mines and digging all the gold out of the ground. I don't know. I'm just extremely suspicious. Look at the number of cars and look how many people are meant to be there. It's just, who are these workers? You know, do you ever meet any? Doesn't look realistic to me. I don't know what you think.
Your self-rescuer is going to go probably on your right-hand side.
We're gearing up to go 2 miles deep into one of the biggest gold mines in the country.
I can't believe we're 2 Empire State Buildings down below the surface of the earth.
And we still have quite a ways to go.
I gotta tell you, this is not at all what I thought a gold mine would look like.
It's exactly what I thought it would look like.
Hunting for gold goes all the way back to 4000 BC, and today the obsession continues. Here in Barrick Gold's Cortez mine in rural Nevada, more than 1 million ounces of gold were mined last year alone. That's over $1 billion worth.
Geology has figured out where the pod of ore is, and then they just point us toward it.
But finding gold these days is much more complex and expensive than just, well, panning for it. In fact, you can't even see the gold in this mine.
I mean, it's amazing to me to think that this is gold, but it is.
Yes.
It's right here.
Yes. You can't see it. It's microscopic.
Miners have to drill and blast through layers and layers of rock to reach the gold.
There's gold in this, and what I'm going to do is turn this into a pile of muck.
It looks like dirt, but muck is actually gold ore, tiny particles of gold that will eventually make up a gold brick.
I'm going to get about 10 truckloads out of here, 10 ounces of gold, 10 to 15 at $1,400 an ounce. And we'll do this several times during a day's work.
Not bad money.
Not bad money.
So after the gold ore is mined, about 400 tons of it goes in massive trucks just like this one. Of that, only 4 ounces is pure gold. It's taken, it's crushed, then it's taken in the mill, and then it's refined.
After the ore is crushed and ground, we leach the gold out. From there, we put it into a pressure cooker environment, high temperature and pressure, with various chemicals, and it pulls the gold out. And this is the final step before pouring the gold bar.
90% gold, 60 or 70 pounds. $1.25 million. Not bad.
Not bad. Good day's work. Oh, it's a profitable business and it's good right now.
Great margins.
Great margins.
Barrick mines gold for around $300 an ounce, and gold is selling for record highs around $1,400 an ounce. Those big margins mean jobs, something desperately needed in Nevada, a state struggling with the highest unemployment and foreclosure rates in the country.
I can provide for my family, you know, and I don't know any other job in this world that I get paid for what I get paid and survive now these days, the way the prices are.
There's job security here with gold that high. Not going to run out of work.
In Elko, Nevada, Poppy Harlow reporting.
All right, let's look at this Grasberg mine, right? So Grasberg mine in the middle of Papua New Guinea. So it's already in a place which is super remote. Basically, you can't go there. Everything about it is hearsay. It already happens to be in the place where you're least going to be able to verify anything about it. And then look, it's just the whole country is like there's nothing. It's featureless. And then there's this kind of extraordinary outcropping of rocky, crazy stuff, and this mine, and it just looks like. I mean, doesn't this look like a drawing to you? Just it looks like the background of a video game or something. You know, it looks like a drawing, like a design, a level design that's just been superimposed onto some other imagery of a place which, in general, probably doesn't exist. I mean, I've got my suspicions about the whole of Papua New Guinea and this region of the world, because it's all hearsay. You can't even fly over most of it. You can't access it in reality. But anyway, have a look at this thing. If you look at it in detail, make up your own mind. It has the same kind of quality to it, doesn't it, as the other mine we looked at. And both of them they just look like pieces of art. They don't look like photographs taken from not a satellite, but they don't look like aerial photography. They don't have that quality to them. They look more like pieces of works of art. They are works of art. Make your own minds up. This whole gold mining story seems so ropey, and then what also adds to the suspicion is then they create these like disaster tragedy kind of stories on top of it about how in really poor distant countries they have to risk lives and there are children suffering because of the gold and the gold mining, and it just fits into all their other ridiculous narratives about, you know, these. It's just all part of the same kind of narrative of bollocks as the rest of the stuff that's turned out not to be true. So I don't know. I mean, see what you think about this. See, this is a really sad story because this is about the Philippines.
Philippines is Asia's
which,
Gold Coast.
for the target
Across
audience,
the country, over
a
200,000
distant
people
place,
work as small-scale gold miners.
and one which is
Every
portrayed
year
as
they
very kind of
produce
backwards
hundreds of kilos
and
of
fucked
gold,
up,
exported worldwide on the black market.
but isn't, obviously.
Driven by poverty
reality.
and hunger, they stop
And,
at nothing to dig out a few flecks
You know,
of
they have to
precious metal,
depict these kind of
including
insane
risking the
ways that they
lives
go
of their
about
children.
obtaining gold. Like, it's got to involve children, it's got to involve children suffering, it's got to involve either death or risk of death. It's got to, you know, see these stories of, you know, suffering, solitude, broken families, and it's all very, very, very implausible. Like, how can anyone collect gold? How does being a small child help to obtain gold? They have this story that they have to send them down tiny little tubes in the ground. So they have to send them just child-size. There are these child-size tubes into the ground, and they have to send them down them with these kind of very limited breathing equipment. So they basically they've got to give them a straw, and then they have to run the straw. This is so that they can breathe as they're swimming down into these like tubes. They just basically have a compressor engine pumping air to them as they swim down into these underground labyrinths, which are the only way that you can obtain gold. Unfortunately, you know, it just so happens that, you know, the creator of the world or the random creation of the world just happened to put gold down in this labyrinth where only children could swim down to it and risk their lives. But I don't know. I mean, I just watch it and I just think, well, it just stinks of bullshit, doesn't it? Does it not smell a little bit of bullshit? There's gold just embedded in these tunnels and you can only access them by being very poor in a very remote place and willing to risk your life for tiny pennies of...
The conditions also pose longer-term health risks for children. One is the poor quality of air fed to the divers by the compressor
I'm not really
engines.
buying it, and maybe I'm being a bit too cynical about it, but I just think these people are just clowns.
Monoxide with other pollutants because it's very close to the engine that's driving.
If you think about it, all they have to fake is really just
on the body at those depths
some photos and these kinds of silly stories. There's very little you actually have to fake to back up the story of gold mines, because nobody expects to visit one. You don't expect to visit one in your lifetime.
bits of the land.
and you just
The
think
third is the poor
someone else has
quality
been
of
to
the
one
water they're diving in,
that you could meet,
susceptible to
but you
bacteria
happen
and
never to meet
parasites.
any of those people
Somebody to be
who've actually
spending a
been
lot
to a
of
gold
time
mine or
breathing
experienced it in
poor
any
quality
way,
air,
and then you haven't been
under
yourself.
pressure,
So
under the
it's just the
water,
usual kind
and
of
exposed to all of these
the usual kind of
bacteria and
soils.
other bugs in that dirty water.
Anyway, I'll leave you with
This clearly poses,
the,
a
you know,
significant health
to be
risk.
fair, leave you with a clip from the World Gold Council promoting the idea that mines are real. But you know, none of the footage
Despite
really.
the dangers, the mayor feels he
There's
needs to
they
turn
could
a
just
blind
take
eye
footage
to
from anywhere.
illegal mining,
You know, there's nothing to
rather than
suggest
forcing
in any
families
of the
further
footage
into
that gold
hunger.
mining is actually a real thing.
Child miners
You know, I
like
see what you're
Jill
saying.
are trapped
I mean,
in a
quarrying
vicious
is real,
cycle of poverty
gold
and
mining?
danger.
There are nearly 6 billion mobile phones connected in the world today, and billions more that have been thrown away. More phones, in fact, than there are people on the planet. And there's gold inside every one. Gold today has a surprisingly wide range of uses, from medicine to nanotechnology. And gold mining too has changed beyond recognition. 21st century gold mining is a large-scale, modern industry using advanced technologies. This is the story of how one of the world's most important metals is produced. Tight security surrounds the regular helicopter flight to this mine in South Africa. It's one of the most valuable delivery jobs in the world. Its cargo starts here, deep below the landing pad. Some of the tunnels are up to 5 kilometers deep. Temperatures would rise to over 50 degrees Celsius if refrigerated air wasn't pumped in to cool the mine. The workforce in a modern gold mine is highly skilled. These are jobs that bring measurable social and economic benefits to both countries and communities. Where gold is found nearer the surface, open cast mines are dug instead, and the land carefully restored afterwards. However gold is mined, getting it from ore economically and efficiently involves some complex chemistry. Most gold today is usually found in rock as microscopic particles, invisible to the naked eye. Typically, every ton of ore produces less than 10 grams of gold. Extracting it begins with crushing and milling the ore. At this mine, that's done in these huge drums. The rock is crushed to a fine sand and mixed with water to form a slurry. It's pumped to huge tanks for the next stage. That's the heart of the gold extraction process. Small amounts of cyanide are carefully trickled into the tank to form a very dilute solution. So safety is a top priority. Modern large-scale mines operate to strict rules that cover health and environmental impacts, including the responsible use of cyanide. Inside the tank, the solution leaches the gold from the ore. Cyanide, Cn in the equation, is one of the very few chemicals that will dissolve gold. Then small chips of carbon are added. They trap the gold from the solution, separating it from other impurities. The carbon granules used in this mine are made from waste coconut shells, part of the growing move to make gold production as sustainable as possible. The carbon is recycled after the gold has been redissolved in solution again in a process called elution. This gold solution is then treated by electrolysis. An electric current causes the gold to be deposited on the negative electrode, the cathode. If that wet cathode material was put in the smelter, it would explode, so it's pressed and dried. Finally, the dried gold cake goes into the furnace to be smelted into the pure metal. Inside, a chemical flux is added to help separate the gold. Because the molten gold is the heaviest element, it sinks to the bottom. So, as the precious liquid is poured, the gold is the last to leave. That means that only the top ingots are gold, the rest is slag. The people who pour the ingots are incredibly skilled. They know from the way the flame changes colour just when the gold is coming from the furnace. The precious gold is almost ready. And it is precious. Each ingot, called a doré bar, is usually purer than 18 carats and worth over $1 million. It's precious and scarce. All of the 171,000 tons of gold ever mined is still in existence today. It would fit into a cube with sides of just 20 meters. The doré bar is given a final clean and a polish. And there's one last job to do. Each bar is stamped with a unique number and barcode. A small sample is taken too to test for purity. Gold today is responsibly produced by professional, skilled workers to high standards. The gold from the mine is flown out to be refined further. About half of it will be used to make jewellery, the rest kept as investment-grade bars and coins, or going into technologies vital for life in the 21st century.
Well, it's all bollocks, isn't it? Guinness. That's what the men would say, isn't it? It's all bollocks. Ranker's language.